You know, some people just do extraordinarily, almost seemingly superhuman things. And we just don't even understand how they do that. Give you an example. This lady was named Florence Chadwick, born in 1918. And you look at her and you think, you know, what did she do that was all that amazing and special and outstanding? Well, turns out she was an endurance swimmer. She crossed the English Channel several times, setting records each time. If you don't know, the English Channel is roughly 22 miles across. And of course, you can't just swim 22 miles across it because there's current flowing through it. You have to kind of swim at a line. So it's longer than 20-something miles. Can you imagine swimming 20-something miles once, let alone multiple times? But you know what? Even people that do super extraordinary things, they don't always make it every time. There was an instance in May of 1954 where she was going to make an attempt to swim, to be the first woman to swim what's called the Catalina Channel. It's on the west coast. It goes from Catalina Island to the coast of California, roughly 22 miles, roughly the same thing as the English Channel that she had done before, right? Should have been no sweat. Well, the problem was that morning that conditions were not favorable at all. During the swim, there were several times that the support boat that was beside her had to take a rifle and literally shoot into the water to keep sharks away from her. And then, worst of all, the fog set in. She swam for 15 hours and 55 minutes. And she decided that she couldn't go any further. She had the support boat there with her, and she requested that she be pulled out of the water. She couldn't go any further. Couldn't go on. The thing is that when she got pulled out of the water, neither her nor her support staff at the time knew that basically she was a half a mile from the shoreline. She was a half a mile from her goal, but she couldn't see it. In an interview later on, she said, listen, I'm not trying to make an excuse for myself, but I know if I could have saw that shoreline, that I could have made it. And you think about that. We're not endurance swimmers. Maybe you are, I'm not. But so much in life, if you could just see the goal line, if you could just see where you're going, it would be so much easier to get there, wouldn't it? Think about Psalm 119, 105. Thy word, here's what we wish it would say. Thy word is a complete set of solar lights to entirely light my pathway. We would love that. That's not what that verse says. That word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my pathway. It gives us enough for the next step and the next step, but it doesn't show us all the way to the end. You see, so much about being a Christian is, not necessarily things that you can control. She could not control that day the weather. She couldn't help the fog rolling in. But as we live our Christian lives, there's a lot of things that we can control. And mainly the thing that we can control is ourselves. We get to decide where we're going to look. So many things in life, where are you going to look? Are you going to look at the negative? Because let me tell you what, there's plenty of negative. There's negative all around. There's pain and suffering and evil and heartache everywhere you go. But you know what? That's not the only thing. You can look for the negative or you can look for the blessing. Hey, I like my cool new shirt Miss Beverly made me. The blessing is today I not only get a sermon illustration, I get a new shirt. And it's a 4X and not a 5. Come on. You got to find the blessing. You got to look for the blessing. But now I'm going to tell you, there's plenty of things in life, and I get it. There's been plenty of times where I didn't want to look for the blessing. I wanted to sit in the pit, and I wanted to wallow in mire and just be mad and kick and stomp and throw a fit and not look for the positive. And I think there's some things that are kind of universal that keep us all from wanting to look at the blessing. And this morning we're going to dive into those things. If you got your Bibles, go with me to Numbers chapter 13. Numbers is where we're going to stay today, primarily. This is God trying to bless his people. And when you think about blessings that God has given us, okay, his son dying on a cross would be number one, but if you go down below that, probably one of the biggest blessings that he ever did was he called a group of people out and he gave them what? The promised land. I'm going to bring you into a land that flows with milk and honey. I'm going to give you this blessing. But them being human beings, just like we all are, they had a problem receiving that blessing. They had a problem seeing what it was that God was about to do. And we're going to cycle through these things this morning and look at what it is that kept them from seeing the blessing. Let's just, you don't know the story, right? A whole entire generation is going to fall in the wilderness because of this. Their children are going to get to go in, but they're not going to. The only two people that are going to make it out of this generation is Caleb and Joshua. That's it. They're not going to get to see the promised land because they did not look for the blessing. So let's begin. Numbers 13, verse 1. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the people of Israel. From each tribe of their fathers you shall send a man, every one a chief among them." So Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran, according to the commandment of the Lord, all of the men who were heads of the people of Israel. Now sometimes, I don't know if you have this nasty habit, but I do. I read a Bible story and I just kind of assume that's the way it is. Can I ask you a question? Why did they need to send spies into the land? Do you think God needed a reconnaissance report? Do you think God didn't know what was already over there? I mean, I'm going to send you into a land flowing with milk and honey. Like, did he have to send out, Bubba the spy to go figure out what was over there? I don't think so. Why did they send spies? Because you don't know the story. The spies are going to come back, and the spies are going to stir up the people, and the spies are going to be like Chicken Little. Oh, the sky's falling. So why even send them? Can I tell you, it wasn't God's idea? When you go to Deuteronomy, the second telling of the law, you find out what the real story was behind this. God said, yeah, go ahead and send them out, but it wasn't his original idea. Look at Deuteronomy 1, verse 19 through 21. Then we set out from Horeb and went through all of the great and terrifying wilderness that you saw, on the way to the hill country of the Amorites, as the Lord our God commanded us, and we came to Kadesh Barnea. And I said to you, you have come to the hill country of the Amorites, which the Lord our God is giving us. See, the Lord your God has set the land before you. Go up and take possession, as the Lord, the God of your fathers, has told you. Do not fear or be dismayed. Then all of you came near to me and said, let us send men before us, that we may explore the land for us, and bring us word again of the way by which we must go up, and the cities into which we shall come. This thing seemed good to me, and I took 12 men from you, one man from each tribe. You think about this. Whose idea was it to send the spies? It was their idea. Why did they do that? I mean, God done told them, you back up, and I'm going to send you here. It's going to work. You're going to get all of this stuff. I'm going to tell you why they sent spies. They were scared. You notice the wilderness? Verse 19. Then we set out from Horeb and went through all the great and terrifying wilderness that you saw. They had come out from this, and they're scared. And you know what? I get being scared. I get it. I do. I'm going to tell you what, a lot of times we're afraid of failure, but I'm going to tell you, sometimes in life you're more afraid of success than you are failure. Because success involves the unknown. God says, I'm going to bring you out, and I'm going to give you this land flowing with milk and honey, and you're going to be my people, and I'm going to be your God. And you say, yeah, but what's that look like? God says, all you got to do is go over and take it. Well, let's send some people over there and go check it out. I mean, we need a road map, and we need to know where we're going and what we're dealing with and what we're up against. And why do we hesitate? Why are we scared? God opens the doorway and opens the path and says, here you go. You're perfect for this. Go on down the road. And we go, I don't know. I mean, we all do it. Moses did it. I want you to go lead my people. I don't know. Me? You want me, a murderer, to go do it? Well, I don't speak real well. Why don't you just send somebody else? You understand how you can be afraid to look for the blessing because simply fear? You know, what if I fail? But more than that, what if I don't? What if God puts me in this situation and I have to do this new thing? And what if I don't know what it looks like? And what if? You've played the what if game. I know you have, because you're human. And instead of looking and saying what could be, we're afraid of what if. We don't want to look for a blessing. We want to look at what could possibly happen or fail or and I'm going to tell you what, it's a choice. And I'm not sitting here telling you that because I've got it all figured out or that I don't struggle with it. I do. But I know that the more I live life and the more I go through things and the more times when I'm scared and I'm fearful and God works it out yet once again, it's like, dummy, why you keep doing that? I can look at the negative or I can look for a blessing. Because the blessings are there. He who has promised is faithful. We fear success. But here's another thing that keeps us from looking for the blessing. We go a little further in Numbers 13, down to verse 25. At the end of 40 days, this is the spies coming back. At the end of 40 days, they returned from spying out the land. And they came to Moses and Aaron and to all the congregation of the people of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. And they brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. And they told him, we came to the land which you sent us. It flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. However, you ever have with them however moments? However, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides that, we saw the descendants of Enoch there. And the Amalekites dwell in the land at Negeb. And the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the hill country. And the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the Jordan. You see, when you're afraid, that fear drives your focus. I mean, you read this story, and they cut down one single little cluster of grapes, and it's so large that they have to put it on a stick and pack it between two guys. You ever moved a refrigerator or a washing machine, something heavy enough that it takes two guys? Could you imagine? You know, now we go to Sam's and we get these cotton candy grapes, and they're really good, but I ain't never seen a grape so big that you got to have two guys to pack it. I mean, you imagine what that had to look like, basketball-sized grapes? God said this land's flowing with milk and honey, and I'm going to give all this to you, and you come back and you got this grape as big as a basketball, and you sitting here worried about who lives over there? That's really easy for me to say because I'm not the one on the line, right? It's not my nervous system that's on fire. I'm not the one in danger. But you understand that fear sets your focus. This is a theory. If you don't like my theory, throw it away. But I think that probably 95%, I don't want to say 100%, but I think 95% of remaining a Christian You listen to me? 95% of remaining a Christian is simply perspective. You think about Romans 8:28. All things work together for the good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. It didn't say all the things were good. It says all things work together for the good. You go read 2 Corinthians 11. Paul went through a bunch of things that are horrendous and horrible and that we wouldn't want to happen to us. And yet, when he got to the end of his life and he knew that he was going to meet his Lord, all those things that he went through made it all the much sweeter that he was going home. You think about that. We let fear drive our focus. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a situation and my mind wants to take off. I want to, I start fighting the arguments ahead of time, or I go back over a situation over and over again. And I have to pray, Lord, give me faith and not fear. Because my tendency, my reaction is just to go, oh, Chicken Little, sky's falling, sky's falling. No, dude, you got hit in the head with an apple, okay? Chill out. Or as my middle son would say, chill down. Okay? It's not that bad. But you know what? You know who has to talk myself out of that? Me. Now maybe you can come along and maybe you can help me. But at the end of the day, I'm the one that gets to choose what I look for. Am I going to look at the negative? Or am I going to look at the positive? If it had been hot this morning, I was going to come in here and complain about how hot it was and use that as my sermon illustration, and that didn't work out. But, I'm the one that gets to pick whether I'm going to look at the negative or the positive. The funny thing is, Tony talked last week about choosing your joy, finding your joy. And I had the idea for this 2 weeks before that. I thought, that's kind of funny, right? They kind of go together, and I didn't mean for it to. But, God give it to me, and I'm going to run with it, right? I can choose whether or not I'm going to look for the good or look for the bad. Here's another thing that stops us. Verse 30 and 31. But Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are able to overcome it. Then the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. So they brought to the people of Israel a bad report of the land, and they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone to spy out is a land that devours its inhabitants. Okay. If it devours their inhabitants, how did they get out alive? How did a group of people pack a cluster of grapes around and not get killed? You understand this isn't a logical problem, right? So many times, the thing that hinders us from looking for a blessing is the fact that we got our mind made up. And I'm not saying there's not times you don't need to have your mind made up. But it's one thing to be upset and anxious and worried, but when you get to the point to where you will not look at the evidence, that's a dangerous spot to be in. Right? Those giants are scary. I get it. They are. There was an entire army of God's people once that was being held at bay from a 9-foot loudmouth bully named Goliath. I get it. But here's the thing. You get to select your scale. What do I mean by that? You get to select your scale. If my hope and my trust and my everything that I pin my hopes and dreams on is on me, then when I look at those bullies, those giants, they're bigger than I am. And they're bigger than what I trust in. And I'm in trouble. But if what I put my hope and trust in is God, those bullies are big, but they're nothing in comparison by God. You understand how scale works? We have a phrase, you make a mountain out of a molehill. The idea being it's not really that big. And as big as those giants were, they were nothing against God. God handed these people an entire city. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to walk around it and blow a horn. What? I want you to walk around it for 7 days, and on the 7th day, walk around it 7 times and blow the horn, everybody holler, and the wall's going to fall down. I mean, I don't need a track hoe, a bulldozer, a tank, explosives. Nope. I need you to walk around in a circle and blow a horn. That's all I need you to do. But yet, we're over here going, ah. We get in trouble when we have our minds too made up. They're running in fear. They're running in fear. And they're not going to listen. Number next. Here's a big problem. Sometimes I have to tell my boys, just like, stop. Stop. Sometimes we just talk too much. Now that's funny, me being a preacher and having a point in a sermon about talking too much, I guess. But Numbers 14. Then all the congregation raised a loud cry, and the people wept that night. And all the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole congregation said to them, would that we have died in the land of Egypt, or would that we have died in this wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and our little ones will become a prey. Would it not be better for us to go back to Egypt? And they said to one another, let us choose a leader and go back to Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces. You see, sometimes we just talk too much. When we get in the middle of this situation and we don't like it, we go find other people that are in a similar situation. What do? We begin talking. And the more we talk, the worse it gets. You realize what they're doing is they're sitting here and they're gossiping against God. They lash out against Moses and Aaron, and when that isn't enough, then they start basically bad-mouthing God. Can you imagine? Once again, why are they doing this? It's fear. You know, I guess if you want to boil this down into one point, what keeps you from looking for a blessing? It's fear. But sometimes, you know, there's real wisdom in just knowing when to hush. Just knowing when to quit talking. Because a lot of times, you know, you get in with a crowd and the herd mentality, and all of a sudden now we've made it into something way bigger than it really was. The race riots in the 1940s in Detroit were basically started off a rumor of a baby and a woman that got thrown off a bridge that never even happened, but the whole crowd got whipped up into a frenzy, and they burnt the city down almost off a rumor. I'm not saying we don't talk to people. We don't seek out wise counsel. Yes, we do those things. But there's some wisdom to knowing when I just need to be quiet and I need to back up and I need to think a little bit. There's a big difference between acting and reacting. You understand what I'm saying? Jesus went into that temple and he formed a whip of cords and he flipped the tables, and you read the account and we kind of imagine this scene in our minds where an action movie, he goes in there and stops the whole place. But you read that account and he teaches them. He wasn't reacting. He didn't fly off the handle. He let them take their money out of there. He was acting, not reacting. I'm going to tell you, you get in with the wrong crowd and you get to talking too much, it's really easy to start acting and not react, or start reacting and not acting, not doing things purposely, just going along with the crowd, right? Here's another one. And this one's really hard when you're trying to do ministry. Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the people of Israel. And Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephthah, who were among them, those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes and said to all the congregation of the people of Israel, the land which we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land that flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not fear the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Their protection is removed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. Then all the congregation said to stone them with stones. But the glory of the Lord appeared in the tent of meeting to all the people of Israel. God has to stop this riot that's about to happen. And I want you to understand that a lot of times we get hung up and can't see blessings because we're trying to control people and we're trying to control outcomes. You know the rest of this story. The only two of this generation that gets to go into the promised land are Caleb and Joshua. They did everything they could to stop the people from doing this. But then when they couldn't stop them, what did they do? They remained faithful. You can lose yourself trying to save somebody. Right? You can't make anybody do anything. And it's hard. You don't want to see. Can you imagine how hard it was for them wandering in the wilderness, watching every one of their peers pass away and die, knowing it didn't have to be that way? Knowing that, we're going to get to go on and do what God wants us to do, and you're not going to just because you wouldn't stop for 2 minutes and consider the truth. I can't imagine what that had to be like. But I know that when you're trying to serve God and you're trying to do what's right, that you can't overextend yourself. I can't lose myself trying to save someone else, because if I do that, then what happens to both of us? We're both lost. If you're drowning and I'm drowning, I can't stop you from drowning. I can't give you what I don't have. And that's hard. But if I can't control what other people are going to do, I can still remain faithful, and I can still go look for the blessings that are still around me everywhere. I can do that. So we look at all of these things, right? All these things that kept them from receiving the gift that God had laid there before them. They're going to be 40 years delayed getting to the gift that God had given them, all because they didn't want to look on the bright side. Look at Deuteronomy chapter 8 and notice what he says. The whole commandment that I command you today, you shall be careful to do, that you may live and multiply and go in and possess the land that the Lord swore to give to your fathers. And you shall remember the whole way that the Lord your God has led you these 40 years in the wilderness, that he might humble you, testing you to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. You see, when you think about looking for the blessing versus looking at the negative, really what we're talking about is your desire. If you want good, you'll look for good. If you want negative and evil, guess what you'll look for? God did what he did on purpose. He gave them all the chances in the world. And the next generation, if they had disobeyed, guess what? I don't think they would have got to go in the promised land either. God did what he did to find out what was in their heart, whether they were going to obey him. And eventually they're going to fall away too. But the point remains. They had a choice to choose every day what they're going to do. They're going to look for the good or they're going to look for the negative. They're going to be faithful or they're not going to be faithful. And here we are, 2026, summertime upon us, and we're in the same spot. What are we going to look for? We're going to look for the positive, we're going to look for the negative. We're going to look for things to build us up or tear us down. Because I'm going to tell you, there's plenty of both. But only the positive is things that you're going to actively find. You got to think. You got to dig to be a Christian. Nobody gets there on accident. Nobody stumbles into saying, oh, look at all the blessings I got. Just on accident. It's something you have to do intentionally. I don't know what your need is this morning. Maybe you need to become a Christian. Maybe you're hurting. Maybe you need help looking for a blessing. I don't know. But you've got options. You can come down front. You can go to the shepherd's room. You can pull somebody aside. Because I'm going to tell you, God loves you. And you're surrounded by his people who love you. And if we can help you anyway this morning, come while Morgan sings to us.